Marhaba. Right now we're going to talk about derived Arabic verb patterns, or what we call in Arabic أوزان الفعل. Awzan are one of the big concepts that we have to remember when we're looking at Arabic words just as words. The other one, which you're probably familiar with, is called judhr, which we sometimes refer to as a root in English. The usually three-letter combination that has an intrinsic core meaning. So, for example, you probably know several words already from the judhr: kaf, ta, ba. We take that judhr and we can use it to make words like kitab, meaning book, or maktaba, library, or katib, writer, all of which return to this intrinsic idea of writing. That's the idea that they have at their core. Wazn is the singular of awzan. And when we talk about wazn, really it means any word pattern. So technically, maktaba, we add the mim and the ta marbuta, or katib, we add this alif, kitab, and alif there. All of those we can refer to as awzan. They just mean patterns, the extra bells and whistles that we add to a judhr to turn it into a particular word. Right now, though, we're focusing on the awzan of derived verbs. This is because the awzan can affect the meaning, and knowing them is really going to help us incorporate more vocabulary, make up our own vocabulary, and deal with the other grammar that we're going to encounter as we learn Arabic. So, when we talk about awzan in the abstract, we usually use this placeholder judhr, fa, ayn, lam. It's just kind of a dummy. We put it there because we're not talking about anything else, right? We're just talking about them in the abstract. Fa'ala is actually a fusha verb, meaning to do. So that's the reason that we use it in these patterns. When we want to create a meaningful word, though, we swap out the fa, ayn, and lam with the letters of a meaningful judhr, which we'll see in just a moment. When we're talking about awzan in the abstract, it's convention in Arabic. It's sort of a tradition of traditional Arabic education in Arabic to refer to the awzan by their conjugation in the past tense. So I would call this wazn af'ala, for example. In Europe and North America, there's another different tradition where Roman numerals have sort of been assigned arbitrarily to them. So if someone says pattern for, or wazn for, or wazn af'ala, they're talking about the same thing. So if I want to put a judhr into a wazn, I just follow these templates as exactly as I can. For example, we know a verb, yadrus. He studies, or to study in the infinitive. And suppose that I want to put it into pattern 2, wazn fa'ala, to change the meaning. I've got this core meaning of studying, but I want to change it. What I'm going to do, sticking with the huwa conjugation in the present tense, is follow this pattern exactly, except that I'm going to swap out this fa for a dal, and this ayn for ra, and the lam for sin, but I'm going to keep these vowels. So instead of yadrus, I wind up with yudarris, because I've got the dhamma, the fatha here, and the shadda with a kasra there. So I wind up with a word with a meaning that's related but not identical. Yudarris, conjugated, means he teaches, to teach, as opposed to yadrus, to study. This is a really, really common relationship that we see between a Form 1 verb, the most basic kind we've got, and a Form 2 verb. The Form 2 verb, the Form 2 wazn, the template, kind of has this meaning of making someone or something do Form 1. We know it doesn't always work that way in real life, but ostensibly, someone who teaches is someone who makes someone else study, right? This can seem a little abstract and cold and algebraic, and I wouldn't really recommend that you attempt to memorize this chart in its entirety as is. Instead, I think maybe a better approach is to memorize or maybe remember that you already know a bunch of verbs that fit in those patterns. I provided some here. If you've completed the first book of Al-Kitab, you should probably know and remember most of them. Yudarris, meaning teach. Yushahid, meaning to watch or view. Yumkin, meaning to be possible. Yatadhakkar, which means to remember. Yatabadal, which means to exchange back and forth with each other. Yanqata, to be cut off. Yastami'a, to listen. Yahmar, which means to turn red, like if you get a sunburn or if you are a tomato ripening on the vine. Or yastami'a, form 10, to enjoy something. The thing to realize is that all of these awzan carry slightly different shades of meaning. So this was one example that we saw. Another example is that form 7, in fa'ala, always has a passive meaning. So if we say, for example, that inqata'at al-ilaqa, you had a habib, you had a habiba, but something happened, things went wrong. Wa inqata'at al-ilaqa. No one is being blamed here. The relationship was cut off. Always passive. We're not ascribing an action to a particular person. Or I could say, inqata'a al-kahraba. The electricity was cut off. By who? I don't know exactly, but I'd like to give them a piece of my mind. It's a great way to avoid responsibility, actually. If we took dal ra sin and put it into this pattern, I could say, for example, al-kitab indarasa. The book was studied. We don't know by whom, maybe not anyone in particular, but if I really don't want to take ownership of not having done my homework, John, did you study the book? Al-kitab indarasa. So the awzan allow us to play with language in this way and get very specific shades of meaning. For the moment, it's important just to recognize that those relationships exist. We're going to have individual videos featuring just 1 or 2 awzan at a time to talk about the relationships that they have with each other and talk about the intrinsic meanings that they carry for verbs. For now, just understand that understanding these awzan and how they work together is a big part of using Arabic in the most precise and poetic way possible. That's what the awzan allow us to do.